Thank you.
Please, thank you.
First, I apologize for sitting when everybody else had to stand. It is partly because I am a newly bionic woman. You laugh at me, it's true. I had new knees a year ago, and I had new hip 3 months ago. So standing for a long time is painful. It is not to disrespect either Mr. Nishimura or any of you here. Like my Nobel brother, Kailashji, this is not the first time that I have been in Japan. I have been privileged to be part of the international campaign to ban landmines. In Japan, both the government under Prime Minister Obuchi and with the Japanese campaign to ban landmines made a huge impact on the world and the decision of many countries to get rid of anti-personnel landmines. So I have great love of Japan. I've been here, as I said, many times with the Japanese campaign, but I've also been here in a big summit. I think we were 11 Nobel Peace Prize laureates who held a peace summit in Hiroshima, sorry. I can't remember what year. I'm getting old and senile, even if I have new joints. I want to tell a little story from Hiroshima and then talk about the need for disarmament in order to possibly have a world free of war. At the Hiroshima summit, when I first got there, I swear that I could feel the spirits of the people who died when my country dropped an atomic bomb on Hiroshima. One wasn't enough, of course. We went on to drop a second, but that was because they were testing which weapon worked better. I felt those spirits, and after a while, I just felt like I had to get away from the conference and just walk and see the streets of Hiroshima. And I came upon this, shop window, and I was struck. The most beautiful kimono I have ever seen in my life. It was blue, and then it grew chrysanthemums down the bottom that were orangish pink. My two favorite colors in art, by the way. And I stood there spellbound. And there was an older woman shopkeeper in there. And she came up to the window and motioned me in. And I thought, well, what? I don't speak Japanese. She doesn't speak English. But I went in, and she dressed me in this amazing kimono. This glory of creativity that human beings have, the possibility of. She dressed me in this. Then I asked her how much it cost, and I was so staggered, I almost fainted in the kimono. Needless to say, I did not buy it. I went back to the conference, and there was, at that time, an exhibit of drawings by survivors of Hiroshima bombing. And the first thing I saw when I walked into that exhibit was a young woman running away from the bomb, and her skin was draping to the ground. And it was like the beautiful silk of the kimonos, but it was her skin because of war. It was her skin, because my country believed it had the right to drop nuclear weapons on Japan. Nuclear weapons have formed kind of a centerpiece as to why I am the activist I am. And I was actually just thinking about it now. I was born in 1950, and I grew up in little teeny town in Vermont, and I had to practice rolling up under my desk in elementary school so that I would be able to survive if a nuclear bomb hit my school. Obviously, that is insane. But I grew up with terror of nuclear weapons. My sister still shakes when she thinks about nuclear weapons. If we do not rebuild the structures of global governance, if we do not rebuild and strengthen multilateralism, where all of my brothers and sisters have said, dialogue is what we need. We do not need weapons of war, we need dialogue. We need to believe that your humanity is as important as my humanity. I don't have to like you. And sometimes when I say that, people are like, whoa, wait, aren't you Mother Teresa? You received the Nobel Peace Prize, aren't you, almost holy? No, I'm not holy. I want the best for everybody on this planet, even people I don't particularly care for, because everybody has the right to live in peace, security, and dignity. I was listening very closely, of course, to Mr. Ban Ki-moon about the United Nations, and I share many of the things he said about different entities of the UN and the wonderful things that those entities have done, are trying to do now in a collapsing world, and hopefully will do in a future where the world is rebuilding globalism, rebuilding multilateralism, and choosing different paths to a different future that will let us live in human security, not national security. I remember as a child, we had UN days, and we'd pretend we were different countries, and we'd debate each other, right? And I believed the mythology at that time, because I was in grade school or junior high school, that the UN was a place where nations of the world came together and threw aside their particular wants and needs, their nationalism, and they worked together in order to solve the common problems of the world. Then I started working, not in the UN, but I was working on the campaign to ban landmines at the UN in Geneva. And I saw the underbelly of the UN. I saw the structures in action that were put in place after World War II that had nothing to do with creating a body where governments could discuss common problems and find common solutions for the benefit of everybody, even people we don't like. We always hear about the Security Council. I won't even go into it. Everybody knows it's broken. I just want to note that it was broken from the beginning. It was created that way in order to keep the power in the hands of the 5 countries that theoretically won the war. Another horror of the United Nations is the rule of consensus, which actually is a dictatorship of one. Just think about this. We have been working to try to stop killer robots for over a decade now. Killer robots are the marriage of artificial intelligence and weapons of war, where human beings step back and allow these weapons to choose their target and kill it. I am abdicating my humanity. I'm giving a mindless weapon the power to target any of you and kill you. We started the campaign to stop killer robots, and it has been very intense, and there are times when governments are just wanting it to happen now, before it's too late. Some would argue it already is. And we would sit in hours of discussions, a couple times a year in Geneva. And at the end, always, the majority of countries in the room wanted to do concrete action to deal with these weapons of horror. Any one country could say no, and nothing happened. They are still saying no 10 years later. Well, research, development, and testing, by the way, on the battlegrounds of Ukraine, now in Gaza. These weapons are continuing to be developed and built and used, despite the fact that the majority of countries in the world do not want them to be developed, sold, used. I was heartened the other day to learn that a UN resolution did pass. And I wish I could remember the number of countries, but that's senile things happening again. It was something like 124 countries called upon the world to create a treaty to ban killer robots. Of course, the things that are called great powers, which I have a hard time with that concept. A great power is one that can destroy the world because they have nuclear weapons. That's a great power. So I believe very firmly, and I think most people who think about these things believe we need reform of the UN. There are several fundamental things that need to be reformed. Of course, the Security Council, but also this entity that was formed to save humanity from the scourge of war was also supposed to create a military council under Article 26 of the Charter. And that military council was supposed, from different countries, of course, was supposed to work together in order to figure out how to divert money from weapons and war and use that money for the betterment of humanity, the planet, etc. Imagine if they had done that, there would be resources for the SDGs. Instead, that military council met a few times. It was worthless. It never did anything, and it disbanded. So not only did the Security Council maintain power for 5 countries, they conspired to make sure that nothing happened in that military council to divert resources to help people on this planet. If we want to see change, we have to have change in those parts of the UN. That would help rebuilding global governance. Many are calling for the General Assembly to be a stronger body, and that there be civil society representatives in the room. And every Nobel you have heard speak here is a representative of work of civil society. We're not great entities. We don't have jillions of dollars. We're individuals who care about the greater good. And if we want to see better global governance, if we want to see the rebuilding of multilateralism, where countries like Russia and the United States actually talk to each other, instead of Mr. Putin threatening the world with the use of nuclear weapons. He has made it easier for talking about the use of nuclear weapons in the world. He's calling for he's calling for the ability to use tactical nuclear weapons. Tactical nuclear weapons. These nuclear weapons today that are so tactical are 10 times stronger than the bombs used on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We need reform. We need to have the courage, like Mr. Nishimura, very successful businessman, always has had a dream of peace. And he's taken that dream, he's dreaming, he's discovering how we move forward to create a world with structures that save this planet and save the humans on it. Thank you, Mr. Nishimura. Thank you. I think about this a lot. Well, because I've been an activist since Vietnam, which shows you how old I am. Don't you say anything, Kailash Ji. You might be older than me. I'm not sure yet. I'm going to check. I'm going to ask your wife. We need people to care. And this is one of my hot button issues. Compassion fired by passion. Sitting back and not participating, for example, in the work of UPI, United Peace International, or not participating in the work of Japanese campaign to ban landmines, or not participating in organizations in this country that are trying to help refugees, is not a solution to the problems facing us all. And sitting back and waiting for somebody else to solve the problem is definitely not going to help this planet. It is not going to help us. We all have power. I rejected that forever until women friends of mine kept saying, yes, you have power. Use your power. Use your power. When I think of power, I think of dictators, corrupt government systems. I don't think of the power of choice. The power of choice. We, as humanity, can decide that war is not inevitable. We can recognize that war is a choice. We can push forward global governance structures that take away that choice. But if we sit back and do nothing, wars will continue. The system will continue to deteriorate. And as others have said, and I won't bemoan it because it makes me very agitated, life on this planet as we know it will end. The power thing of individuals is important. If I recognize that I have the power of choice, right? I can choose, I can discover, I can dream of a different world. I have to dream it or I can't create it, right? If I believe these things, and I recognize that I can use my power to participate in change, and I do nothing, I've abdicated my power. I've given it up. As some phrases we hear these days, and I actually believe them, and they make people upset, but we're all upset about something. If a person chooses not to be part of the solution, that person is part of the problem. I firmly believe that. And one doesn't have to be a full-time activist. One can pick one issue. It doesn't have to be any of the issues that, fire up my righteous indignation, which is different from anger. Righteous indignation of having to see change where there is injustice and inequality, and weapons of war instead of using those resources, that brilliant intellect of the men, mostly, sorry, gentlemen, who create these weapons. We can't sit back and let that happen. We have to choose how we are going to live our lives. And the choice is whatever bothers you the most. Now, whatever gets your righteous indignation going, find an organization working on it and volunteer. I started my work as a volunteer. I was a full-time teacher. But I would go a few days a week to an organization and volunteer, and here I am 50 years later, old, but still fighting, because I choose every day to try to be part of the solution. It's not hard. There's nothing magic about it. You don't have to grow up rich. I grew up in a poor family, but they supported my choice, supported my decision. You can choose to be part of positive change. You can choose to help Mr. Nishimura and United Peace International rebuild the structures that give us security. What is real security? Real security is not having more nuclear weapons than the other great power. Having all of the great modernized nuclear weapons that the US had and has did not stop 9/11 from happening. We need people to understand that weapons and war are not heroic. People can act heroically during war, but war itself, look at the videos from the Middle East. Look at the war between Hamas and Israel. There's nothing heroic about that. Entire cities being wiped out. Weapons targeted at hospitals, ambulances. State terrorism. We don't like to hear that. We like to hear about the evil terrorists. Governments can be state terrorists. So I will end with a positive note, and you'll be happy that I'm the last person that you're going to have to listen to, mostly. Believe in yourself. Believe in your power. Know that you can be part of positive change for yourself, too. You know, don't do this just because I want everybody else to live better. I want to live securely. I want to live in a world where kids can get a real education. I want to live in a world where women don't have to keep telling men that they should be listened to. Enough already. Enough already. We've been listening to you for millennia. I want to live in a world where life beyond human life is valued and taken care of. It is my choice to participate in that. It is my choice to be part of UPI. It is my choice to decide to work with others who want to see global governance rebuilt, who want to see multilateralism work, who want to see people stop competing for resources, for money, for control of the world, for power. That does not make us secure. What would make us secure is when the SDGs are met. And that could be done in a heartbeat if military industries of war were stopped and the money was used to help this planet and all life on it. I'm privileged to be part of efforts to do that. You too can choose how you want to help. Thank you.